something that might even destroy him. This is the New York headquarters of the Anti-Defamation League, the world's most powerful Jewish defense organization. The ADL's job is to identify and expose anti-Semites.
Tell me what you know about David Icke.
I know that he about yearly makes a tour of the United States. He is a New Age guru, and unfortunately his philosophy is tainted with anti-Semitism.
The Anti-Defamation League believe, although they're not entirely certain, that when David Icke says 12-foot lizards secretly rule the world, he's using code, and what he really means is that Jews secretly rule the world.
If David Icke is telling people that 12-foot lizards equal Jews, it would make me feel very much as if I had something to worry about if David Icke came to town, if he believes that his 12-foot lizards are Jews.
The question is, does he believe that? It's hard
that's
to know
that's a very good question. If he just believes that they're 12-foot lizards, there are probably reason to be concerned about his health. If he believes that they're 12-foot lizards who represent Jews, there's reason to be concerned for the health of the Jewish community.
Knowing what I do about David's past, my guess is that when he says giant lizards secretly rule the world, he really does mean lizards. But I could be wrong. These are old anti-Semitic cartoons from Eastern Europe, and there is something lizardy about the way the Jews are portrayed, encircling and enslaving the world. Is this a coincidence? And there's something else. David has many fans on the extreme right. The hardcore neo-Nazi unit, Combat 18, once attended one of his lectures in London and gave him a glowing review in their newsletter. It was a good speech, they wrote. He began talking about a big conspiracy by a group of bankers, media moguls, etc. He was always clever enough not to mention what all these people had in common. Salt beef sandwich, anyone? So the anti-racists are not alone in believing that when David Icke says lizards, he means Jews.
It does open up a whole can of worms about code words.
The Anti-Defamation League is really concerned about code words.
David's line of defense is clear. When he says lizards, he really is referring to lizards.
There is a tribe of people interbreeding which do not relate to any earth race. It's not the Jews, it's not there's anything. Just look at me. This is not a Jewish plot. This is not a plot on the world by Jewish people.
Well, the thing is, when you say this is not a Jewish plot, some people think that's a metaphor for you saying it's a Jewish plot.
Are you going to laugh first or me? Who's disappearing up their arse, me or you?
You can't win this. This is part of the ludicrous attitude.
This is just total friggin' nonsense.
David Icke will put his hand to his heart and say, I am not an anti-Semite, I have the greatest respect for the Jewish people, but the Jewish hierarchy, like Muslim hierarchy, the Christian hierarchy, and so on, they're 12-foot lizards.
Right.
Does that make him an anti-Semite?
I think it does. I think it does. I mean, the fact is that that's a favorite way of dealing with anti-Semitism. I only dislike these Jews. I don't dislike all Jews. I just dislike these Jews. And somehow these Jews are the absolute epitome of what being Jewish means in the world.
For all the anti-Icke discord that exists in the conspiracy theory world, there is some solidarity when it comes to feelings about the Anti-Defamation League.
Any of us that are working to stop this New World Order, we're their enemies, and the best thing they can call us is an anti-Semite, because then the whole world hates us. You say, anti-Semite, oh, that's the next thing towards Satan himself. I mean, that's like calling you Satan, you see. So that's the first thing they hit you with if you start talking against the New World Order, that you got to be an anti-Semite.
When you say they, who do you mean?
Anybody in what we call globalist.
My own feeling is that the ADL is an Illuminati front.
see, in all these different religions and all these different belief systems and all these different cultures and races, the Illuminati have to have organizations, otherwise they're not controlling the game. There are areas that are unpredictable, and there's one thing the Illuminati can't stand, and I think their genetic structure is part of this. They cannot stand anything that's unpredictable. Last night was great, and the bookshop Orderson said they could have sold the tickets twice over in the end.
The more time I spend with David, the more I'm convinced that when he says lizards, he means lizards.
And I would emphasize, you know, we all have a reptilian part of the brain called the R complex, a very ancient part of the brain. We all have a reptilian past. I mean, there are still some people in the world that are born with tails.
Could the Anti-Defamation League be falsely accusing David of anti-Semitism because he's getting too close to the truth? Are the ADL part of the shadowy elite? Does the shadowy elite even exist? I wanted to get to the bottom of it, and I felt that the answer lay within the simple question. When David Icke says lizards, does he mean lizards, or does he mean Jews? Vancouver. A coalition of prominent anti-racists have organised an emergency anti-Icke meeting. There are powerful people here, members of the ADL's Canadian affiliates, the Canadian Jewish Congress and B'nai B'rith. This coalition is convinced that when David says lizards, he means Jews.
Above all, I think David Icke represents a political threat. His writings are anti-Semitic. He believes that the world elite, the Illuminati who dominate every aspect of our lives, are genetically descended from an extraterrestrial race of reptiles that came to Earth some time ago in the form of humans who are capable of changing their shapes, who are Satanists, who engage in ritual child sacrifice, who drink blood.
This is a public meeting, but the chair has let it be known that it is for people who have already made up their minds about David. Unsure people are not welcome. If they could read my mind, I would not be welcome.
Because this is actually a meeting for people who are opposed to David Icke's presence in the community and opposed to the things he says. And I would just like to know if there are any people here who consider themselves supporters of David Icke or
I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know what he stands for.
This is not a meeting to debate what David Icke stands for. This meeting was called by people who have a very good understanding of what he stands for, and that what he stands for is against community values. So that's what the purpose of this meeting is to organize against David Icke.
I want to make a trunk call.
Why does everyone make fun of this elephant? I don't get it.
Well, people make fun of people sitting in elephants because it's funny, that's why. People say I'm flipping mad. I mean, crikey, I don't sit in elephants.
Who, quite clearly, in my view, is acting as a conduit to some extreme far-right organizations. Combat 18, I'm responsible for violent attacks on minority groups. So I see this as a real political concern in terms of what his agenda is.
I have a question for the man that just spoke. Do you see the Patriot movement as bad things?
I see them as far-right, anti-Semitic, racist ideologies.
I've been in the militia of the United States for the last 4 years. I've only met one racist there. I've met more on the street.
I mean, I think at this point that it may be unproductive, you know, for...
I'm here to learn. I don't know anything about Mr. Icke. If you want to move me out, fine. But
well, I think that there are people who are uncomfortable with you staying at the meeting.
Okay. Could I ask 2 questions, perhaps rhetorical, before I leave?
Well, we set the terms of the meeting as that this isn't really a debate.
Yeah. I wasn't here to debate. I was here to get information about Mr. Icke. But I'll go. I take it most of you consider Nazism and Marxism are not the same thing. Am I right? You would think one is way worse than the other, and that they're not the same?
Actually, I think we really need to proceed with the meeting.
I'm gone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wheels have been set in motion. The Canadian Hate Crimes Unit has been alerted. The coalition has also written to ex-Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney to inform him that David Icke is accusing him of being a reptilian, blood-drinking child murderer. But so far, Brian Mulroney has declined to be provoked into legal action. In fact, every individual accused of reptilian blood drinking by David Icke has so far failed to sue, including Bob Hope, George Bush, George W. Bush, the Rothschild family, the Queen of England, the Queen Mother, Ted Heath, Prince Philip, Chris Christopherson, Al Gore, and Boxcar Willie.
You look what I've said in The Biggest Secret about the British royal family, how they're involved in satanic ritual, how they take part in human sacrifice ritual at places like Balmoral and stuff. Come on, let's have you. If it's not true, take me to court, let's have this out.
This is Canada's biggest book chain. Today, David has been invited for a book signing, unaware that the coalition has telephoned ahead to warn that if the event goes on, there could be violence from other racists.
If we're going to live in a free world and have the freedom of expression, how is that going to be defended if all it takes to stop it is one phone call threatening violence?
I'm not debating. I'm saying that right now the situation is that we chose not to have it because there was an issue of security, and I'm getting concerned about this right now.
Pamela, you're not willing to debate it because you have nowhere to go.
Well,
that's the truth. Please don't complain when your own freedoms are taken away. Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome.
These are your freedoms. And you don't realize that you're playing a part in destroying your own freedom by being just another clone of a system you're not interested in because it makes life more difficult to think about it. It's your freedom. I could walk away from this.
The events of the morning have made David rueful and homesick.
Would I want to do other things with my life other than this? My God, yes. It's something related to sport, probably. You know, I still love sport and all that stuff. But the thing that kills me most about doing this endless friggin' traveling is missing great chunks of my little boy growing up. There's not a day goes by without me feeling the agony of that.
What have you got to do this morning?
I've got a talk on a radio station, and then there's 2 television interviews. Don't ask me who they're with. Don't ask me anything about them. I feel like a mobile mouth, you know, sit you down and ask you questions, and you start talking. It's kind of strange life. You know, it's like my mother. When are you going to get a proper job out of Dave? When are you going to get a proper job? Never, never. Because this is a proper job, I guess, strange that it is. Radio 1 Broadcasting. Is this the one? Radio 1. Is Tony Blackburn here?
Yes, thanks.
Hello. Hi. David Icke. I've kind of been interviewed on a program at 10:15.
Right. We have reviewed the material which was submitted to us.
Say again?
We've reviewed the material which was submitted to us.
Uh-huh.
And we've also reviewed the radio regulations 1986.
I don't believe it. You got an exclusive here. Go ahead.
And we just don't feel comfortable with it.
Why?
Just don't feel comfortable.
Why? Explain to me.
No, that's it. Sorry. Thank you very much for coming.
You have invited me onto a radio station. I turn up on time, and you stand there and say, without any substance or explanation, we're not having you on. Now...
I just explained to you.
No, you haven't. Why? Tell me why.
I have reviewed the material which you have written, and I don't feel comfortable with it on the radio.
Why?
No, that's it.
This is what I'm talking about when I say the public are given one version of reality, and people like this at AM 1040 in Vancouver prevent them having another version of reality, which means, of course, that they're getting part of the story and not what they're really entitled to hear. And if you think not exposing the fact that children are being abused in fantastic numbers, my friend, is too much for your radio station, then you tell the children who are being abused.
Thanks for coming in.
You know what your radio station is?
Thanks for coming in.
It's pathetic.
Thank you very much for coming in.
And you say you believe in freedom? You couldn't spell it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
This is life in the free world, ladies and gentlemen. And this is one of the architects, unknowingly, of the destruction of our freedom. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
This is unbelievable. No explanation, no substance, no debate, just that's it. No conspiracy, no suppression of information, ladies and gentlemen of the world. Well, you've just seen it yet again.
You did say you were sick of doing radio interviews.